Good morning. This is the part that we will cut away when we before we upload this to YouTube. Morning, still waiting for my coffee. It's not really there yet. Right. So let's just wait for the coffee to be made. We'll be with you in just a few seconds to get started. I hear the coffee. I hear the coffee. Right. Perspective. Wow. Anyways, technical from a technical work. There we go, and then just gonna. Right. I'm just getting ready and need my morning coffee. I'm sorry for going all silent on you people. We are almost 5 minutes in and I still haven't got my first sip of coffee, but I will because I heard my coffee maker just make the sound. I'll be right with you and we will get started. And for those, so just so we know what we're talking about, this is the topic of the day. Right. Okay. Good morning. Um, good morning. Let's get rid of this for now, but let's get started a little bit. So yesterday I started to talk a little bit about testing in JavaScript, and pretty much got into a nice flow of figuring out, what testing is all about, and so on. And I think that we got into a fairly good discussion, and I pulled up this image here that is kind of can be confusing a little bit in the beginning, but it's a nice representation of how testing can work in a specific workflow. But it also, in my opinion, demonstrates in a fairly good way um, the two main ways or approaches to automated tests and what we are testing. And so we were talking about those two circles that you can see on this diagram. Let me just get rid of this in here. Right. So we see two circles, and each circle is divided into three parts, and those three parts are the same for both of them. They are colored color red, and the second one is green, and the third one is dotted. And the red part of the circle, 1/3 of the circle, stands for is a part in time where you write your automated tests, and you have those tests go red, and then and the reason they are going red initially is because you write your implementation first before you even before oh god, I'm really talking rubbish now. You write your test first before you even write your implementation, and that means that your tests will fail initially until you start writing the right code to make them pass. And initially, when you start in the outer circle, you test behavior that is very close to the user, which basically means that you are testing user interface elements or data or flows, right? And then after a while, you can't really continue with the acceptance testing or end-to-end tests, whatever we call it, the outer circle. But you have to go down to the unit level, which is like the very components of which your application is being built from. And so you start to do that instead, and that is the unit test approach. And then once you've got them up under control, you move up to the outer circle again, and you kind of continue this back and forward jump between those two circles. That is the theory, at least, right? And so another thing that I spoke about yesterday was the three stages, like three stages of a test, right? Three stages of a test case, right? Yes. So let's just format this. Right. In those three stages, there are generally a setup stage where you kind of prepare your test cases. Perhaps you create a few objects you navigate to a page if it involves user interface approach here. You basically do set the stage for the test to be able to be run, and then you interact with your function with your code one way or another. If it is a functional test, like you test a function on a unit level, you perhaps pass in some data, and then you, or if it's a usability test, you perhaps click on a few buttons, you fill in some user forms or what have you, and the third step is, of course, to assert that whatever you wanted to happen actually happens. Like if it's a unit test, that the data that is being returned from the function actually is what you wanted it to be. And if it's a acceptance test, then you should know whether the outcome is actually the desired outcome, if the user gets to see whatever he came to see, or and so on, right? Right. So yesterday we tackled the unit test parts in this circle, right? So I worked with that, and so today I want to work with acceptance test. But just first, we're gonna do a recap. That's gonna be the agenda for today, actually. Or let's create just an agenda so we know what we're doing. Agenda. So I'm reckoning that one, go over yesterday findings. Yesterday's, that's not a word, but we're gonna fix this here. Go over yesterday's findings, update code plus readme, and then, well, we can also push to GitHub. So we're gonna have that, and then introduce Cypress IO. That's basically what we're gonna do. I don't think I need a more like a agenda. But first, of course, is gonna be theory. It's a really, just an overview. And the second one will be do a small project, our workshop. That's gonna be that. I think that's enough. All right, let's go over yesterday's findings and get started with. So that's gonna be the unit test Mocha-Chai thing. We actually found out some interesting things. I had Mike from Agile Ventures join me yesterday live. Actually, in audio, because we are usually setting up a Google Meet. So if you want, whoever is watching, if you want to join in over Google Meet, that is perfectly fine, unless as long as you promise to be nice. Right, so this is it. Here we are. I'm gonna move this one out of the way, but this one is started now, so it's possible to join in. And let's have a look at yesterday's findings. Right. Where am I? Here I am. Good stuff. Okay. Right, so yesterday we started to use Mocha and Chai to build our tests, and that was pretty interesting actually. The setup is minimal if you want to use Mocha and Chai for the purpose of unit testing. That's actually not a very hard hard thing to do. It's pretty neat. We can see here that the only thing we have is Mocha dependency, we have a Chai dependency, we have the sign-on dependency, and we also have something called sign-on Chai. And the reason we have sign-on Chai is because we want to make sure that we can use a little more advanced techniques like stubbing out, mocking out functionality, but also using something that is called spies. So we introduced that. Then we found a fantastic little extension to our testing tool library that is called BDD Lazy var, and that is not really a good name for me, you know, the way I look at it, but it does amazing things in my opinion. So let me just put this up here. And what BDD Lazy var does might be a bit advanced for some, but it says also it provides a user interface for testing frameworks. Right, but that's also misleading, you know, in my opinion. But who am I? It's not my my package. So you know, they can phrase their explanations however they can. This is defined. It allows to define lazy variables and subjects in tests. That's really the reason why I looked into this into this package. And for an untrained eye, this might seem like, oh, who gives a shit? And I totally understand that. And here sits the nerd that actually does care. So the reason I care is because when I was writing this test here, the test that is looking into the person object in our JavaScript file, or you know, implementation code, we had to work. We have a few describe blocks here. We take a look and let me just see how we structure our test. We're looking into the person class, right? And we want to have a subject, like the object that will be what this entire test is all about, right? So we call that by default subject, because you have to store an instance of something into a variable and you have to run your test against that. So we call that subject. Okay, so we need slightly different subjects for different parts of the application, because we are like modifying the not for the application, for the test, because we're modifying that object a little bit in order to assert if it does what it's supposed to do. Now, first, in this first describe block, I'm checking for the property setters that are properties on instance property setters. So actually, instance of person has property setters on its, yeah, property. Well, I wouldn't say setters here actually. It has properties on instantiations, right? So here I have a test saying it is expected to be an instance of a person class. It could be a little bit misleading actually, but okay. Now, so the only thing we're checking here if it's an instance of a person, And then we're playing around with a few one-liners, which is also an addition by this BDD Lazy var extension. It allows us to write this kind of very neat one-liner tests that are gonna produce a nice output in our test framework and so on. But nevertheless, we are using different types of subjects. In this case, the subject that is defined on line 10, the one that will be used in this describe block, will be extended with these options: the first name, last name, and age of this person. And if we take a look at the next describe block, we do not extend this person with anything, actually, any options. And this class doesn't have any error handlers or anything like that. So that's pretty good for me, because now I have a subject that is totally clear of any set properties, and I can set it myself and so on. And in the next one, the last one, we also don't care about that because we are setting this automat. We're testing the setters and whether this the full name is being combined and so on and so forth, right? But this was a good extension. The biggest takeaway here is that we set up a spy. We found a use case, even if in this very trivial example, we found a use case for spies, and set that up using sign-on, which is nice. That's a good example of how you can extend your testing framework to do more things. And I left some comments here in the code just to say what's going on, and we are going green on this thing. And in order to understand the spy, you basically have to watch yesterday's stream or reach out to me, and I will be doing more sessions on sign-on, actually, because that's a very interesting part. Anyway, if you look at the implementation that is in the source folder, this person class is a very simple thing, and it is a class. It's a JavaScript class. I don't necessarily have to write it as a class. I could have it as an object or whatever, but I have some functionality bound to that particular thing, and I'm exporting this module exports thingy. All right, so that's it. Let's just hit this up. Forget about this. We have our git flow here. Small adds formats code during after review. We'll talk through. Review. Right, there we go. Right. All changes, all this, and just push this up to origin. Okay. Alright, so now we can close this for a second or two, and we will talk about this one. Well, actually, I need to just save the link to this thing. So let's just add a new slide here, so I keep my notes in order. And so I'm gonna say BDD Lazy var. That would be this. let's just do mocha chai sign on, and just I'm gonna keep the links. Sign on chai, right? Sign on chai, right? So mocha is this. Right, so it's mocha.js.org. That's pretty straightforward. So I'm just gonna add this here. Chai.js, I think it's chai.js, right? Yeah, it's chai.js.com. It's pretty straightforward. Sign on chai, or sign on is also sign on JS, I think. Sign on JS. Is it? Yeah, it's .org actually. Okay, good stuff. And then we had the sign on chai. Right, so it's sign on chai is an extension to chai with neat matchers, which is good. Should have been called with. Right, that's exactly what we're doing. Sorry, just got a little bit carried away there. Right, so these are the things we are using for unit testing. Unit testing. Whoops, there we go. Good stuff. Let's move on to Cypress, and Cypress is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Cypress is an assertion is a test runner for acceptance tests or end-to-end tests, and as they claim, the web has evolved. Finally, testing has too, and I've been a great advocate for Cypress. When Cypress was introduced, I immediately kind of fell in love with it, and I am really happy that I found this framework. It works extremely well. It's easy to run, and even if unit testing in JavaScript has been rather straightforward, testing user interfaces and web applications has not, and Cypress brings that to the table. And it's really easy to set up, and it's really easy to run, and it's quite powerful, I would say. So let's dive into this and see if you can get smarter. Now, I will do what? I'm listening to a little bit of soothing music in the background. I hope that is okay with you guys. Right. Everyone is fast asleep. I totally get it. It's 8:30 in the morning here where I am in Sweden. It is what it is. I'm just gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. The reason why I'm talking about all of this is because I'm preparing a few talks that I will be delivering in the context of a summer school that we will run as a charity project together with Agile Ventures, and I need to get a good hang of this. I've been practicing test-driven development for a long while, but sometimes you need a refresher on how to set up your environment, and also how to talk about it, and how to present this, and so on. So that's what I'm trying to do now. I have yesterday I created a folder here. Right, it's called testing for workshops. So let's get into that. And here I should have one basic unit testing. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it basic acceptance testing. Right. Yes, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna cd into this testing. Oh, sorry, basic acceptance testing. Right, and here I'm also gonna do yarn init, and I'm gonna build a small little web application. So I will make sure that we call it something. I should have passed in the Y flag when I did yarn init, but it's okay. So in order to get something up and about as a web page, we want to add a small web server, and I'm gonna go with the simplest one. I'm gonna call this one. I'm gonna use super static. So super static is a small web server that is perfectly fine with us, you know, to get that up and running. You know, we don't have to do anything else. And I'm just gonna mk. I'm gonna create a folder, and I'm gonna call it. Well, I can call it source, actually, and then. Oh shit. mkdeal source. Sorry about that. And I'm gonna create an index HTML file here, and I'm gonna pop this open in my code editor like this, and I will just go to my index HTML, create a very basic HTML page or document, and we will say E2E demo, and E2E stands for end to end, which is what we call these tests, end-to-end tests. That's what we call them in JavaScript world. In Ruby world or Rails world, we would probably say acceptance tests. But yeah, it is what it is. And so here we will just say h1, and we will say hello user, which isn't much for the world, but nonetheless. And here in our package JSON, we want to add a script, and the script will be start, and you know, to fire up the server, and the start script will execute one command only, and that will be the super static command, and we will just point super static towards the src folder, which is where our page is. And so pretty much with this setup we are good to go. So we should be able to just say yarn start as a very first thing, and it says that super static has been started, and we can visit localhost 3474 to view your app. Okay, so let's do that. We go to our browser and we go to localhost 3474. That's the port, and we see hello user here. Okay, so we have that up and running, and we will keep that server up and running here. We can turn off this page. We can move this out of the way, and this terminal can be run and the super static server can be started, that's perfectly fine. We will take a look at this from time to time just to make sure that everything works. But other than that, we will have this server up and running. It's very important that we do keep this up and running, because the way I will set up our acceptance tests will be a very simple setup. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible, to make sure we have to make sure that Cypress has somewhere to go. And so when we tell Cypress that you were supposed to go to a page, we need to give Cypress a URL, and that localhost 3474 will come into play when we do that. So we're gonna open this up now, and open up a terminal in our IDE. Remember to keep the server up and running, and we're gonna say yarn add Cypress, and that will install our dependency, Cypress as a dependency. And I'm actually going to try to attempt this to do this without reading documentation, because I've done this a few times. So doing this live on Twitch can give me a chance to test my abilities, or to make a total fool of myself. No, not a total fool. I think I have it pretty much covered. But who knows, right? Who knows? We'll see where we end up. And we're installing things, and I'm just gonna constantly monitor my memory, because for some reason when I stream it has a tendency to consume a lot of internal memory, and I have a piece of software that helps me clear that up. So right now we should be pretty good, but it's important to keep a track of on this, right? So anyway, we installed this, and we can see that we have two dependencies now, Cypress and superstatic. And I'll also just a disclaimer that when you do this for a real project, you wouldn't add Cypress the way I just added it as a dependency. You would add this as a development dependency. So that for demo purposes it doesn't matter, but for real purposes it will. And when we do the next part of our series, whether it's today or tomorrow or whatever, which would be right now we're doing this one, right? But when we do the full BDD flow, I will not make things like that. I want to use things the way they are supposed to be used. But again, I'm just in demo mode at the moment, so I don't really care whether we follow every single best practice. I can talk about it, I can mention it, so but we should be okay with going with this at the moment. All right, so we have it installed. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to add a script. I'm doing this out of my head. It's been a while. I want to add a script, and I want to say I want to call this one, for instance, CI open. I think that's what you can see in some tutorials or documentation or walkthroughs or what have you, right? And that would be a command that says Cypress open. And there are two ways of running Cypress. Sorry, woof. And I will focus on one of them today, but it's important that you know that there are two. And the first one, the one that I will be using today, is the way where we actually open a browser to interact, to see our test being executed. So we'll open a browser, we will execute our test, all the interactions will happen in that browser, and also there will be like a panel telling us if our tests pass or if they failed. And that's a very good thing. It's a powerful tool for working with front-end applications when as a programmer or even a designer, because you get to see everything live and so on. But there's another way to run Cypress, and that is without that interface. So that pretty much executes all codes, all tests in your terminal, in the CLI, without an interface, without a browser, and that is pretty useful when you don't want to see everything. Of course, it could be a little bit faster. Actually, we sometimes refer to this as running your tests in a headless state, and when you say headless, or headless mode rather, we it means that it doesn't show on the screen what we are doing with a browser. When refers to end-to-end testing or acceptance testing only. But today we will run Cypress open because that will open up a browser for us. Right. So we did two steps apart from me talking constantly. We did two things. We added Cypress as a dependency, and we added this script. And now we will run this script because it's important that we run it at least once initially, even before we start writing any tests, and you will see why in just a second. So if we do yarn ci open, and I'm using yarn, you can of course use npm with this if you want. That's perfectly fine. And so when you run it for the first time, you will go through a verification process. And in my case, it says, it looks like this is your first time using Cypress 7.1.0. So they are in a new release that is called, they dropped, well, they moved into the 7th release of Cypress. Not really sure why they're making such a big jump. Just 6-7 months ago they were in release 5, but who am I to judge? And it's opening Cypress. And what happens on my other screen, you will see that in just a second because I will move it over, is that you see this interface. Right. Let's see if we can make this a little bigger for you. Right. So, and these people are very nice. I really like people at over there at Cypress. Because they put this this thing together for us to help us get started, and that is to add a few folders and examples tests to our project, and we will take a look at them just briefly. This stream or this walkthrough is not about diving super deep into the various possibilities of Cypress, but still we will go over this a little bit. So okay, let's click OK. I got it. You can see those tests here, and just for to introduce you guys to this, I will choose one of the test cases that they created for us automatically and actually run it. So I'm going to use the one that is called viewport spec and click on it, and this will open up the test runner, and it will run through all the tests like this. And I can rerun this because I assume this went a bit quick. And this test is about testing the different viewport sizes of Cypress. That is what is possible or not, right? So you can see here that everything is going green. You have this panel here with all the tests that are being executed, and then you have the main page here that actually shows the interface, and here we can see that if we hover over the different parts of the test that has been executed, you can actually see the output. So here in this particular test, they are showing this website on a MacBook 15 and a MacBook 13, which is slightly different, right? MacBook 11, then you have an iPad 2, iPad mini, you have an iPhone 6 Plus, 6, iPhone 4, very small. iPhone 4 had a very small screen, I guess. iPhone 3, iPad 2 Portrait, and iPhone 4 Landscape. So apparently, what you can do is to execute your tests on different devices, should you want to do that. This is just an example of what things look like here. Anyway, navigating in the Cypress runner can be a bit confusing, so I just want to go through this here with all this, with this arrow, circled arrow. You can rerun all your tests. You can see the time that has been executed. You can have an indicator of how many tests actually passed and how many were failing, and then you can navigate back to this view, and you can run some other tests here if you want. And again, this particular example was about spice, stubs, and clocks, and so on. But there is another feature here that is really important to understand, that where you are and what you have to your disposal, and that is that you have your developer tools, right? And since you have your developer tools, then you are pretty much set to do all sorts of interesting things, like debugging, like checking out code, really doing console logging, or taking a closer peek on what your HTML really looks like, setting breakpoints, and here in DevTools or in your code, and so on. This is truly powerful, truly powerful. All right, enough talking. Let's get after this. We're gonna go back to this interface. I'm gonna stop these tests now. It pretty much kills that test runner. The interesting part, just a small detail that I really want to emphasize, is that you have you're running your tests in your Chrome browser. This is the best browser, in my opinion, to use when you develop. And I know this is a controversial statement, so let's not kill each other over that. For many reasons, I think Chrome has the best dev tools and so on. I do respect people that have a different opinion, of course. So if you do, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about that. Now, you can switch this to use Electron if you want, and that is also totally fine. It will look slightly different, but not much different. It's just a different browser, and you still have your developer tools available to you, and so on. So I really rarely switch to Electron. Not really sure why, but not super interested in why they have Electron. But hey, that's the way it is. I just wanted to mention this, that this is totally possible. Now, another thing that I just run is the example code for the network request specs. Again, examples, but very useful examples, because you can take a closer look on how things are gonna get down when you are making API calls and so on. And in almost all applications today, you need to make calls to external APIs, because that's the way it is, right. So let's end this for now. Stop this, kill this, keep the server running. The application needs to run, because we will write our first test. Uh, sorry. And what will we run? Well, first of all, you can see that we have a new Cypress folder. Inside of that folder we have 4 different subfolders. We're gonna go over them later. But the one that comes into play now is the integration folder. And in that integration folder you have the examples that I was just talking about. What we want to do is to right click on the examples, or what I want to do, to right click on it and delete that folder. I don't need it for anything. Boom, gone. And it's gonna be time to write our first spec. And so I'm gonna create a new file, and what comes now is of course my ideas on how to run those tests. You can have other ideas, and that's perfectly fine. It's my stream, it's opinionated, you know. Anyway, I'm gonna create a new file, and I'm gonna call this file user can see welcome message. And I say I use camel case when I name my test files, and camel case is lower letter first, and then subsequently we don't separate new words, but we use uppercase letters for new words. The user can see welcome message. And then I say dot feature dot JS. And I got a little bit of a cold, sorry about that. User can see welcome message dot feature JS. That's what I call my test case. And why do I use the word feature? Because I like it. It's a feature and not spec. So you know, some people are using test, some people are using spec, some people are using feature for acceptance test. I use feature. That's what I use. So here I want to have a describe block, and this is exactly the same type of describe block that we have in unit testing, Mocha-Chai, whatever, right? And so I say user can see welcome message. Well, no, not really. I'm gonna say this instead. User navigates to application page, applications root page or something like that, right? And then we're gonna create a before block to start with, and the before block that should pop up here. There we go. Before block will be to navigate to the page, right? So I'm going to say ci.visit, and I will visit HTTP, right? Localhost, and it was 3474, right? Remember, we had that one up and running. So localhost 3474. That will be our main destination first, and then I will add an it block, and the it block will say is expected user that navigates to application page is expected to see welcome message. And I will say I know that I wrote an h1. I used the h1 tag for this, so I can say ci.get just an h1, right? And then I can say as, and no, not as. We can just run an assertion on this, should, and I can say contain text, and as a second argument I will say welcome, hello user, right? Is that what I said? Hello user. I think so. Hello user. Perhaps I had an exclamation mark. I can't remember. Okay, so this one is pretty straightforward. The only thing that it doesn't feel really natural is that you have to prefix all commands with cy, and you can chain commands. That's also good. That's very usual. So what we're doing here is that we're navigating to localhost, and then we're grabbing the h1 that is present on the screen, and we're just running an assertion that this h1 should contain text hello user. Okay, so let's run our command again. If you look at my terminal, I will now execute the ciopen command, and that will start this runner again, and you can see the new file. I've removed all the other example files, right? And we can see user can see welcome message feature, and we're gonna start this one, and it says hello user, and our assertion is going green. So that is as straightforward as it can get. It can't get any simpler than that, people. And we are pretty much set up. This is the lowest hanging fruit I can do for you guys. You know, there isn't much else to do, at least to get the first test up and running. But we can take a look at some other small caveats here, right? So for instance, we don't necessarily want to type out this URL every time. It would be enough if we could do this. Just visit the base path of the application. So in order to be able to do this kind of things, we would have to go into our Cypress JSON file, which is just it's just an object, a JSON object. And here I can add a setting, a key called base URL, and I would set that to localhost 3474. But then there is another one that is called, I think it's called Chrome Web Security. Let me just, actually I need to check that. You know, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Chrome Web Security, but I don't know. Chrome Web Security Cypress. Right. Web security. Where's the setting? Come on. Right, set cross web security to false. So, exactly, that's what I want to do. So I want to set Chrome Web Security, and I just want to say false here. And that is a shorthand for basically allowing us to communicate with external servers and just bypassing a lot of these CORS issues that we will have. You don't always want to do this, so I would definitely say that you need to read through this section of the Cypress documentation if you are into actually testing your application in as real life setting as possible. But you know, very often I don't really care about that during the first part of my development process. I just want to get going, and I can disable this, and that's perfectly fine to do that. So we disable this for now, and we set this base URL in our Cypress JSON, and this of course crashed, while doing this, our test runner crashed, and I don't think I have it. No, I don't have it open anymore because it disappeared. So I should be able to just run CI open again, and we should be all good of that. Pretty okay. Hello user. All right, so I'm gonna take a bit of a break. Let's see if we can take the opportunity and actually run some tests, some not tests, but rather like a what is it called, like an ad or something, right? I need to refill my coffee and stretch my legs. I've been at it for an hour now, so I really need to just take a short break. No, we can't run chat yet, but that's okay. Let's just figure things out in a different way. So what we're talking about today is, of course, the some testing strategies, and we are in the process of running our specs here. What happened to my pages? Oh, there they are, right. So we are talking unit testing and acceptance testing as a whole, but today we're focusing on the acceptance test flow. So let's get into that a little bit more in just a few minutes after my coffee cup has been refilled with fresh Java. In the meantime, you can listen to percussion randomness tabla fusion. I don't know. Let's head over to this one. All right, be right back, folks. All right. So let's see if we can get this show a little more into some more actions. Sorry. Right. New coffee and all is good. I'm back. Unit test, acceptance test. We are focusing on the acceptance test part. Let's see if we can get any smarter. What I did now was to basically go over the setup of acceptance tests. So what I did now was to one, go over documentation, which is like, really briefly, not much. There's not much to go over. You can just dive into this and then feel your way through this, right? But anyway, I'm gonna just include the URL here. If you have a small project already, then you need to do a basic setup of Cypress, and then take a peek at included examples and write your first test. Right. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Just so it's all clear. It doesn't matter what you are building your application in. I was apparently doing a very static website using HTML, only HTML. But it doesn't matter if you use React, if you use Vue, if you use anything else that renders a web page. If it's like a full stack Python, like a Django app, or if you use Rails or what have you, .NET, what have you, it doesn't really matter. Cypress doesn't care about what technology you are using underneath the hood. It is just a tool to interact with your application once it has been started and is live in a browser or can be accessed by a browser. So it's really tech agnostic. It doesn't really care. And it's worth thinking about that, because quite often when you read walkthroughs or you do some tutorials or online courses or whatever you do, the instructor often connects the testing framework very tightly with the framework or library he or she is using to build their app, and it's perfectly fine. It's very often the case. But in the case of Cypress, you have to know that there are no connections like that. And what I just did now is to set up a very basic Cypress config, right? It really doesn't matter how you do it in terms of installation and anything like that. But there might be some caveats here, like you might see, for instance, an error message or a warning underneath the CY when you set this up, and there are ways to fix that, of course, as with everything else in life. And there are other things that could potentially go wrong in your setup. But let's see if we can extend this a little bit, right? Let's see if we can interact with some with a form. That's a very common use case, right? You you have some data that needs to be sent off or what have you, right? So I'm gonna test drive this a little bit now, because so the first example that I did was to basically test for something that is already there. I coded this h1 with hello user as the first thing I did. Now I want to actually add something to my application, and I want to drive this using using tests in Cypress. So tag along. New feature request, new ticket. I'm picking something up, and the ticket is user can fill out a form. User can fill out, let's call it registration form, right? Form, right? So I'm gonna just follow my own standard. So I'm gonna call this feature.js, right? User can fill out registration form, that feature, right? Describe. And we can say we will add a form, but we will of course not register the user. But user, and we can say user that fills in a registration form, and then I'm going to add another describe block here with valid information or data or information, and then I will say, and it is expected to see a confirmation message, for instance. Right. And you think about this, like this is my TDD flow, right? I am building a kind of scenario. Usually I have a user story attached to my feature request, right? I'm really cherry picking things from the flow. This is a walkthrough, a demo or workshop, right? So this is not the entire flow, but I can just tell you that usually you have some sort of a backlog or a product backlog, and you're cherry picking. You're picking the not cherry picking, but rather you're picking the feature on top of that wish list. And in this case, we are just pretending that we are starting to build a registration flow, for instance, and our objective is to accept the data and tell the guy or girl that is registering with us that thank you very much for registering, right? So I'm trying to build this story. It's all about telling a story, in my opinion, right? I don't want to get too philosophical here, but in your test cases, you want to check out or take a closer peek at different scenarios. And the first scenario I want to do here is the happy one, the one where the user actually gets to see that welcome message or confirmation message. There are of course other scenarios where he fails to provide valid data and so on. But that should come next. That should come with as the second step. In this first step, I'm saying user that fills in a registration form with valid information is expected to see a confirmation message. This is, in my opinion, as good as it gets for now, at least. You can definitely have opinions whether the English sentences are properly built or not, but let's go with that one for now. Okay, so let's start from what is it that he wants to see and where should he see it, right? And so we have our page. Let's say that we want to give this guy or add a place for the message, right? So let's say that we would just say ci.get. Wow, crypto. That's not what I want. ci.get. There you go. And we want to get like a div or something that has an ID. Because you can give your node HTML nodes IDs. So let's start with that. So to type this up in Cypress, you could use hard brackets, and you say ID equals, and then let's call it confirmation message, right? Right. I will actually create a node with this particular ID later, not yet, because we're test driving this, and we will say we will run an assertion on this. So we say should, and then we will say contain text, and it will be say thank you for registering, for signing up, and exclamation marks. Let's just go with a very low thing here. So we would say that CI get confirmation message should contain this text, right? We know that before we actually get into something, like we need to navigate to the application, right? So we're going to add a before block, and we're just going to say CI dot get visit, and now we have the base URL already set up, so we can just do root path here, right? And this will of course fail, so there's no reason to even run this yet, but we can take a look, take a small peek. Let's get out of this, and we go back to tests, and you can see user can fill out registration form, right? And it just says hello user. There's nothing here, there's no ID, no node with that particular ID. As I said, this would definitely fail for us, right? But let's think about this even more, right? So we want to execute this, the user navigating to the web page should be done at the very top and very beginning, of course, right? But then we want to fill out that form. So I'm going to create a new before block here, and I will say something like I will start to pretend to interact with my page, with my application. So I will say something like this: CI get, and I will say that this is like a section. There is actually an HTML tag that is called section, right? So we can do a CI section, and then we will give this one an ID equals registration. We're just going to call it registration form. No, just registration actually, right? And then we're going to say dot within, and then something of a callback like this, and I would say CI dot get, and this time I'm looking for an input, and the input will have an ID of name, and we're gonna type Thomas, and then I will just copy this one, and I will say input it here, and this ID would be email, and I will type Thomas at agileVentures.org, which is actually my email address. If you want to hook me up with something, just go ahead. All right, and then I want to say CI get input, and then ID submit form, and I just want to click on this and not type anything, right? Click, and like this. Okay, so we want to get into a section that is called registration, and we want to get, actually we're not going to use section on the second thought. I can use form. It's going to be an HTML form, and I want to interact with it somehow. Yeah, okay. And then that will fail. Why would it fail? Because there is no such thing as a form with an ID of registration. Okay, so that's a failing a failing test. It's our message. It's an assertion error with an error message, and we need to do something about that. So now we have our test case written kind of okayish. That's at least the first iteration of this. We can go to our index.html, and I can do a form, and I can give this an ID of registration, and we will continuously run our registration. No. Right, it did find this. Now I just had to rerun this. Now we need to find an input with ID name. Okay, so we're gonna add that, and I'm gonna say input text like this, and I'm gonna give it an ID, and then we're gonna use name, and I'm actually gonna remove all of the other stuff, and let's see what that does for us. It did find that, and it did fill in Thomas. Awesome. Now he's failing on finding the input that has an ID of email, so we're just gonna add that. And note that I'm just using the bare minimum here in order to make this pass. Okay, good. And now he wants to find an input with an ID submit form. Well, then I'm just gonna say input submit, and the value will be just register, and then I'm gonna give this an ID of submit, right? And we're gonna run this, and it's called submit form and not submit, so mea culpa, submit form. Right, let's run it again. Right, and he did click on it, and now he's looking for a confirmation message, and we do not have that, of course. So I'm gonna go out from the form, and I'm gonna say div with an ID of confirmation message, and that will it finds the confirmation message, but it doesn't find the text. Okay, fair enough. So I'm gonna add a little bit of JavaScript directly here in this HTML. This is just a demo, so in regular development I wouldn't probably do that. But here I can do it, no drama. Right. So let's see if we can add an observable, well, add an event listener to this form. So I'm gonna say document get event list set add event listener, and the first event listener I want to add is the DOM content loaded, DOM content Thomas content loaded, and we will just have a callback here, and then we will say const form equals document get element by ID, and that ID would be registration, and then form add event listener, and the event we will listen for is the submit, and the callback would be something like this. We're gonna execute some code here, but we want to say const message node would be the document get element by ID, and the ID we're looking for him is the confirmation message thing. And so whenever we submit this, we can say message node inner text would be set to what was it? It was thank you for signing up, right? Right. Name, email, submit, register. Right, there we go. Right, so we should, in principle, let's see. No, it doesn't work because we are reloading the page. So we need to say form prevent default, then default. Can we do that? Yeah, we can do that. No. How do I prevent it from? Right. Wow. Prevent. I thought it was. Shit. Do I have to check it out? How do I prevent default from a right. I need to prevent this one from being submitted. Why? Yeah, form prevent default. How do I do that? Prevent default event method. Event function. Oh yeah, okay. So alright. So I just do this. No, not this one, but this one, right? So I'm just gonna go event, and we just say event prevent default, I think, right? Right? Let's see. Yes, exactly. So we just needed to stop him from this its default behavior. Dream traveling, здравствуйте. How are you doing? Hope you're fine. Right. So now we are going green on this particular one. Doesn't look pretty, you know, but it is what it is. Let's say good morning to chat and just bring you up to speed with what we're doing. We are, well, I am. We are. I am. I am talking, you're listening. No, I'm kidding. I'm talking testing, right? So I'm talking unit tests and acceptance tests, two different approaches to testing different parts of your application. Yesterday I was covering the unit test part. Today I am covering the acceptance test part, and later on today, or even in this stream, we will be covering the full BDD and behavior-driven design and test-driven development flow, where we will be combining the acceptance tests and unit tests together to kind of mimic this entire flow of acceptance tests, red-green refactor stages, and then unit test red-green refactor. So this is as fun as it's going to get. If you're into developing web-based applications, then perhaps this might be useful to you. And if not, you can just stick around and see some coding being done. I don't know. But anyway, nice to have you guys with me. And if you feel like introducing yourself in chat and sharing your experiencing with coding, testing, what have you, or if you just want to say hi, that's perfectly okay. Anyway, we are of course not signing up this user for anything. This is just some demo code. But I think what we see come across is that by writing a test like this, sitting down and thinking, what do I want to do? Building a scenario. User that fills in a registration form with valid information is expected to see a confirmation message, right? And then filling this in with some commands for the test framework to actually interact with your application, and then continuously running these tests. Then you can get into a nice flow, where you gradually iteratively add functionality to your web page or to your web application. That's the theory. And if you think about this thing that I mentioned, let's see if we can get this side by side. Let's see. Let's move this out, and we have this presentation here, right? So if we think about the three stages of a test case that I spoke about earlier, and I will talk about it again. It's usually like a setup, interact, assert, right? These are the three things. You want to set the stage for your test, you want to do something, and you want to make sure that whatever you wanted to do is actually being performed. So that's the assert part. So in this case, the setup would be this. We are visiting the page. That's the setup part. Very straightforward. Nothing extraordinary. Sometimes there might be more setup that needs to be done, but in this case, very basic, very low-hanging fruit. We are just visiting the page. That's stage one. So we can add this like step one, setup, right? And then we want to interact with the thing. So we will just do this step two, interact. And how do we interact? Well, we grab the form and we interact with the form itself. That's the interact part. And then we need to assert. And so that would be this. Step three, assertion. So we do the setup, we interact with our application, and by clicking on this button here, we want to assert that we get this message out. And of course, very simple, very basic, not much happening here, but we are following those three steps, and that's how a good test case should be built. Now, sometimes I see these assertions not being really present for some reason, or written in a real weird way. But to be honest, this is the anatomy of a test. If you have any questions on that, just feel free to ask. And if we take a look at the runner itself, it gives us a pretty neat output. User that fills in a registration form with valid information is expected to see a confirmation message. And again, if we open this up, we can see the different stages of how Cypress is interacting with this guy. We just slowly hover over this different steps, and we can see that it fills in with the relevant information and runs an assertion. Good stuff. Let's see if we can add some more. That's not the one. Let's close this one. Let's see if we can add some more stuff to this. That could be interesting. Right. So what if the user doesn't fill in the right information, right? So we can definitely well, before we do that, let's say that we want to add another feature that where we actually like hide the the form, just so that we can pretend that we are sending this off. You know how it is in a web-based application. You send something off, you get the message back, but the form is no longer visible, right? So we could say that it, let's say, hides, is expected to 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 hide the registration form, right? And so we would get this. We would say ci.get the form again. Oh, sorry. Form ID equals registration, and we say should and we will say not be visible. Should not be visible. Once we have submitted this, we should hide the registration form. That's a matcher that exists in Cypress, I think. We'll be figuring this out soon. If it doesn't, it should be there. I mean, it should exist. Right. So let's see if this will fail for us. Of course it will, because we haven't set that up yet. So we see the confirmation message that is going green, but we see that we try to assert that form registration should not be visible, and it is visible. So our test is failing. So let's see if we can change that behavior. So we go to our JavaScript, and we will just say form style visible sets to none. In JavaScript, I don't write much JavaScript, like vanilla JavaScript, but I think this is how you do it. Form style visible none. Yeah, let's see. No, that wasn't that. Okay. So now that we are running into some issues, it's a good way to set a debugger here, right? Your ability to halt the execution of your code is imperative in all cases, when in all stages of development and in any environment, and in your test environment likewise. So we want to stop the execution of our code, but in order to do that, we need to open our developer tools, and that's where this functionality, the reason why we're running this in the browser in the first place, comes in. Because apart from the visual part where we can actually see what's going on, it is also good for us to be able to pop up our dev tools. And for the debugger to kick in, the dev tools needs to be open. Right. So let's run this again. And look at this. We are halting the execution. Where's my sources? No frame for given ID was found. What? Snippets. Right. Really? So let's see. Event is this. That's the submit event. Let me make this a little bigger for you, perhaps. I don't know if you want to see this. And the form, do we have the form? Form is registration. And so form style. Right, and visible visible equals visible undefined. Oh, really? Visibility is visible. Isn't it called visible? I thought it was called visible. Right. Let's see. HTML visible style. Let's see. Style visibility. Oh, it's called visibility. Oh. Oh, right. Okay. It's called visibility. It's not visible. It's right. So if I just say this, set this to none. Can I set this to none? No. Well, first of all, you have to finish the. No. Can I say hidden? Right, hidden it is. Okay. Good. Now we know. So debugging, trying shit out in your console, learn a little bit, or refresh your memory. I knew this. I should have known this. It's embarrassing. No, it's not embarrassing. You know, there's so much shit you need to hold in your head sometimes that it's totally okay to forget how to toggle visibility of an HTML node, I think. And if you want to hang me for it, hang me for it. It's okay. No drama. Let's just take this code, update our visible none, right? Visibility hidden, right? And so we're gonna release this now. It will release with the blue button, and now when I run my test, we can see that the form magically disappears when we submit this fantastic information. Let's run it again, just because I want to see reap the benefits of my work. I was about to say awesomeness, but you can't really say that you're awesome if you manage to hide a form. Forget about it. Anyway, so that's that, right? We wrote a little bit of JavaScript here, but more importantly, we got our test to pass. We got our test to pass, people. Green is good. Gordon Gekko said greed is good in Wall Street, a movie from the 80s. I don't know, but I say green is good, and when I mean green, I don't mean money. I mean green tests. So here is our test. We are displaying a confirmation message to the user, and we are hiding the registration form. So we could say something like, instead of is not expected to see the registration form, right? I think that is perhaps a better way to formulate this. This is always a struggle to write good messages, and I would say that it's so weird because it might seem like the least important thing how to write those, but in my opinion, this should make sense when you read them out in the runner. Anyways, let's continue our struggle with another describe block. Let's say that he fails to submit, like he tries to click on the button before he clicks the button before he fills in like email or something like that, right? So we're going to create a new describe block, and we will call it with invalid. With invalid. Is that even a word, invalid? I think it is a word, right? Invalid information. Right. So we will add another, there's another step here that will be a repetition of the interact, and we will say we will create a before block. In this particular, for some reason I need to have like a space in between. Right. Right. So I need another before block. And so let's add it before, and we will again get this form ID registration. Oh, sorry, get ID equals registration, and again within that thing we will have another callback here, and we will actually copy this, like 11, 12, and 13. No need to write everything, and we will not type in Thomas, right? And then I will actually copy this step 3 here outside of the before block, and I will say you need to fill in your name, and this should be still visible to see that. Right. So this is a test case as good as any. If we fail to input the name here, we should get another message. You need to fill in your name, and the form should be still visible. And so I'm going to say that I want to run only this one at this stage. This is very common, that whenever you start to expand your test and you add new describe blocks and new hit blocks, and which are basically test cases, you want to limit your runner to just run that particular part of your tests, so you can focus on getting that functionality in place. And once you are done with that, you want to run the entire test case and then entire test suite, just to make sure that everything is actually working. So we're going to focus on this particular one. I'm going to collapse this block, and we will take a look at the things. Type cannot accept an empty string, so we can't do that. So we're just gonna remove this one. Cypress does not accept empty strings. Okay, didn't know that. And we are failing because we are still submitting, quote unquote, this form, and that's not the desirable behavior. And we're failing on that, and we're also failing on the fact that the form is actually being hidden, and it shouldn't be hidden. So let's see if we can make that happen. Oh, sorry. There we are. Right. So we go over to our index HTML, which also holds our JavaScript. Not very sexy in any way, because this is just a workshop. It's not real development. I wouldn't write this in JavaScript like that. And if I would probably extract that to a separate file and follow all the principles of development that you should follow at any time. But let's see. So I want to take a look. How can I know if this form element actually has value in it or not? There are multiple ways to go about this. In order to get this thing off the ground, I'm just going to set up debugger here. I use debuggers extensively in my coding. Oh, sorry. So I will open up my dev tools, and I'm going to hit the debugger here, and I'm going to just take a look at the form, right? Okay, so that's the registration form. And can I take a look at the children or elements, or is it children? Child element count. We have children here, and children are those input fields, right? Can we say, do they have names? Right, name? No. Input ID name. Okay, that's the one. And we can say value. Does it have a value? And value is empty. Okay, so I can use that part. So I can have right. I could basically write a conditional. So we could say something like this in our code, that if this one value is an empty string, right? Then we say that the message node inner text should be what? What was it we said? You need to fill in a name. Okay, so let's do that. Right, and then we just do else, and we just move this code into the else block like this, and we should be good on that particular test case, I guess. Let's check it out. So let's run this again, and we are going green on this. You need to fill in a name. Let's do this again. Right, okie dokie. So that's good. Let's write another test case then. Now that we know that this one is going green, we will add another. We will basically just do a describe block here. We will just describe with invalid missing name, and then we're just gonna move all of this stuff inside here, and then just for the sake of it, we can copy this one, and we can say missing email, and then we will actually say we fill in the name with Thomas, but we do not fill in the email with anything. And so we will say email. You need to fill in your email, right? So now we're just gonna move this describe block here into this only here, sorry, into this one, and run it. Can we run it? Right. Oh, shoots. There we go. Had one too many. You know, you have to be very careful when you copy and paste your own code. You should never copy somebody else's code, but you can copy your own code. That's okay, but you should be careful, and I wasn't careful enough on this one. Right, we're running into issues because it still thinks that we pass in valid data, and it submits it. You know, again, we're just faking it, but anyway. So we just gonna have to modify this thing. Modify, and we need to put on well, the lowest hanging fruit here will be else if, and this is gonna be some shitty code, but nonetheless, sorry, we're just gonna do if email, and then we will just set this text to, you need to fill in your email, and yes, this sucks big time, but I think it will make our test pass. No? Whoa. What the what did I... Form. Oh, form. Here we go. Form. There you go. Right. Let's see if this passes now. Yes, this one passes now. Okay, so now we will go over to our test and just run the whole thing, right? And now we have something failing for us. And what is that? Missing name. Right, and what is failing? What is failing? This is a very common thing because you focus on just running your own tests, all in all, and what we are running into now is that is the place where we find where we do this before, right? So we are visiting this one and we are not revisiting them after each test. So I think a fix could be before each instead of before. Let's see if that helps. No, it did not help. So we will copy this, and now we just want to how do I, so do I need to basically copy this in, so I can comment this one out and add this CI visit into each before block here. Let's see if that will help us. Yeah, that did help us. Right, and we're going green on all the tests at the moment. So that's nice, I guess. However, I'm not really happy with the setup now. I was hoping that we would be able to keep this out from those blocks here. Let's see if we can do keep this before each. Can I say after? Can I revisit this thing then? Just so we reload the whole thing always? No, that didn't fly at all. Right, so perhaps we actually need to have this CI visit. There is probably a fix for this, but I don't really care for fixing that at the moment. So we need to get this visit thing into each of the before blocks. Not really happy with that, but so we are basically combining step 1 and step 2 into each. Well, let's just do this like this. Step 1 is the interaction. So this would be the interaction and this would be the setup, right? So let's just change that like this, so we have that properly set up for the sake of the walkthrough or demo or workshop or whatever we want to call this. Okay, so that was pretty much it. What I hope I may come across is that you can use your end-to-end tests, but to kind of test drive your development, even if this was a very simple example, and I'm leaving out the third step, which is the refactoring step. But initially, I just wrote the happy path, which makes the test pass. Then we introduced some other perspectives. In this case, having the user miss out on filling in some information, and again, the error handler or the validation handler is very crude, very basic, not very cool in any way, but it's just a way for me to demonstrate what is supposed to happen and what's kind of how we can use this. So test drive your stuff, add more complexity, make sure you add more functionality as you go forward with your tests, adding more functionality to it, and so on, right? So that's pretty much what it's all about, to be honest. And the rest of the of the stuff that can be added or not added, it's totally up to you. And it is what it is, basically. It is what it is. Right. Let's see if we can pull up this diagram again. Where's my diagram? There it is, right? So again, in this session, I was going through the outer circle, which is the acceptance test. I wrote the test, it was going red for me. Then I wrote some implementation and it started to go green. Then I started to add more complexity, wrote another test, it was going red for me, and I added some implementation code and it started to go green. Again, what I did not do is the third part of that circle, which is the refactoring part. And if you take a closer look at this if you take a closer look at my code, you can definitely, and I think all of you can agree with that, this part of this code is really blah, not cool at all. It could be much better, but again, it works, and I stay out of the refactoring part. It is what it is. We don't have to worry about that. So let's see if we can make sure that this code is pushed up. I will actually stop the server, which has been running in the background at all times. I will stop it now, which means that if I would run my tests again, they will fail because they cannot access the application, and that is of course extremely crucial. We need to be in we need to be connected. We need to be able to connect to our application. If we can't connect, we can't connect. Fuck it, it won't work anyway, right? So let's stop this. Let's go back to test. Let's click stop. All of this is good, and we can turn this one off. I'm gonna go up a level here and do a git status, and we have this new thing with new folder called basic acceptance testing. So I will do git add dot on this one, and just do a git status as a sanity check. And we can see that we added a lot of stuff. We're still excluding the node modules. Really important when you do this kind of things, because you don't want to include those node modules in your version control. So I will just git commit, and then am adds workshop up code for basic acceptance testing using Cypress IO. Right, there we go. And then we're just gonna push this up, git push origin main. And if you are interested in checking out this code, which I hope you are, actually, you can pull this down and run it yourself, and perhaps tweak and modify this code a little bit. You will find this on GitHub, Thomas Ochman, that's me, under testing workshops. Right, here we are. If you have any comments about what we just spoke about, then you are more than welcome to make your voice heard in chat if you think that's good. Now, again, yesterday we did this part, unit tests in Mocha and Chai. Today we did acceptance tests with Cypress IO, and later on today, midday somewhere, I will be going back to streaming and running a full BDD TDD flow. I'm probably gonna use either vanilla JavaScript or perhaps React. Could be useful to set up a React application. Let's see how I feel about that. If you do React, then you will have to do a little more configuration. Let's see what I feel like when the time comes. But yeah, that's the spirit, I guess, right? That's how we play this. We've been at it for 2 hours now, people. Not much more to say for now. The code is being pushed to GitHub. Go ahead and check it out. We've covered a lot of ground. I hope I see you later. Yeah, any questions, reach out. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, people. Coding is fun, but there is also a life out there, and I will be spending some time in the garden today doing some manual labor. Is that how it's called? Just, mowing the lawn or something. Stay cool, stay safe, and stay healthy. Wash your hands. It does it for us. For now, stay cool. See you next time. Cheers.